Redditors. What's the biggest bullet you've dodged in your life that you continue to thank the heavens for to this day? I dated a guy for almost a year, but he was abusive. I found out he cheated on me and he went to live with the other girl, much to my elation. I helped him pack. A few years later, I see him on the news. He killed and dismembered his girlfriend, not the girl he was with when he left. They had a month-old baby together too. It was disturbing. Didn't lend money to a friend because I was broke. Few months later he disappeared with several thousands he had stolen from my other friends. Got offered my dream job running an offshore aquaculture facility. Had to choose between the job and my so's future. Long story. I reluctantly declined the job. A few months later I heard the facility was dealing with a serious disease issue and had no chance of being sustainable. Had I taken the job, I would have most likely being single living in a tiny seaside crap hole town. The job would have sucked, and I would have only worked there for maximum 3 months before the place shut down. Edit. Been lots of comments as to the long version about the so. She has depression and is trying her best to make the most of it. In her late 20s she decided to try and get a degree. For someone who could barely get out of bed in the morning, hold any long-term job, this was somewhat ambitious. She started studies the year we moved in together. Studies went well, but as the degree went on, exam times loomed etc. I had to take over more and more of the household tasks. Essentially all she had to do was college stuff. I did all the shopping, cooking, cleaning, get her out of bed, make sure she worked too hard, etc. We had a routine, not a very fun one, but she was doing well so all was fine. Depression wise she was doing much better, although it did rear its ugly head during stress times. I got offered the job midway through her final year. Her workload was higher than ever. Had I taken the job and moved out, she would have suddenly had to adapt to doing things I had taken over, which for someone with depression would have been very bad. I'd seen how she would react to minor changes in her schedule, so something this big would have set her back years. So although I had to give up the dream job, I knew she wouldn't have graduated had I left. She did graduate, top of the class, is doing much better depression wise, and now has a full-time job. I initially never even told her I got offered the job, let alone turn it down. I waited a few weeks until she was in a better space to tell her. My college GF was a solid 10/10 and great in the sack. Everyone thought we would get married, but I never felt like I could trust her. She never cheated on me. It was just intuition. I broke up with her when I graduated and everyone thought I was crazy. She ended up marrying a guy who was rich. They went on vacation in a foreign country, which shall be nameless, and she put drugs in his luggage. He got busted at customs and spent a couple of months in jail. While he was in jail, she liquidated everything and took every freaking penny this guy had. Eventually, the police got involved and they got her on tape admitting the frame and other things. She spent some time in jail. He rebuilt his life and he's doing okay now, but it took years to get back on his feet. I'm keeping it vague because the news reports are STLL out there. We were all set and ready to put an offer on a house. Did the paperwork with the realtor, signed the check, put down the offer. The realtor was super pushy, but the room was 90 degrees and we weren't thinking straight. After signing the papers we go to see the house again with my in-laws and notice a ton of issues we hadn't seen before. Got really anxious. Big issues like plumbing, a huge wraparound deck that needed work, etc. But we were stuck now. Got a call the next day from the realtor saying that we never signed the bottom of the offer paperwork and can we please come sign it right away. We decided not to and are going to wait a bit and do this smarter next time. Don't rush when buying your first home, folks. Was in Vegas during the concert shooting. We arrived a couple of days prior and the stage where it happened was already set up. Every time we passed by the stage my dad kept telling me we should go there. Looks fun. While I was in Vegas we went to a Golden Knights game and planned to go see what that stage was all about afterwards. I was so tired during the game that I could barely keep my eyes open. My dad noticed and told me we would go to the hotel to sleep instead of the concert. I missed my ferry on 9/11, making me late to work. I saw the plane fly into the building from my next ferry. Buying the wrong house. put an offer on a house that needed some work. Offer was refused. House sold a year later for $100. 000 less than my offer. Bullet dodged. Hey, want to go see the Eagles of Death Metal in a month? Nah, already seen them once. I think it's enough. Let's do something else. I once slipped on ice and into the street right after a truck went by. I had stopped to pick up my phone moments before. If that didn't happen, I'd be a flapjack right now. About 5-6 years ago, I was 3 days away from proposing to my ex when I caught her cheating. This Friday I get to marry my best friend. I feel like the luckiest guy in the world. Moved out of an apartment complex this year where I did not have renter's insurance. It burned down 4 days later. Not my story, but my mom's. When she was a senior in high school, a bunch of seniors went up to the mountains to drink a week before graduation. Someone's dad worked as a ranger, so we was able to secure the keys to everyone's cars so they couldn't drive wasted or anything reckless. Mom's best friends show up late in their topless Jeep. They drink and do a bunch of drugs and decide to go stump jumping in the Jeep. They drive up the path a bit, messed out of their minds, and my mom begs them to stop and wait for her while she pees. She hops out, goes to do her thing. Her friends leave her. She hikes back to camp and tells everyone, and so they go out looking for her 3 friends. Finds them the next morning. Jeep completely turned over. Everyone dead. If my mom went with them, she would have died too. It absolutely messed her up, and she said she's never had a best friend since that, despite her being very social and a wonderful person. Was walking outside and thinking about how my class just went. Looked down and another step in front of me is a completely uncovered, open, unprotected manhole. I'm certain if I'd have maintained my path, I'd have fallen into it. I nearly got my wallet stolen while at Berlin. I had no clue about the amount of guilt trippers who try to trick people into pulling out their wallets. However, my friends who travel way more than me were there to yank me out of this situation and explain it to me. I dated a girl for about 3 years. I decided to leave because I thought she was gonna get me in trouble. Turns out I was right. We were teenagers and experimenting with drugs. Anyway, she wasn't happy about me leaving and reported me to the police for giving her drugs. A good lawyer and 18 months of probation saved me from doing $5.99 in prison for distribution. I didn't understand how tickets worked. There was a fee and a court date, and I assumed I had to go to court that day and pay it there. Missed the court date. Went to the district attorney's office and she looked right my 17-year-old ass and said, "Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to reduce your speed. I'm going to completely ignore the fact that you were out after your curfew. I won't have a warrant out for your arrest, and you'll just have to pay a large fine. This is an almost literal get out of jail free card. Don't waste it." I wanted to hug her through the glass, and I don't think I said thank you enough. My appendix exploded. One hospital rejected me and told me to go home and use some low-key painkillers. Got driven to another hospital, immediately rushed for an operation. If I spent another day at home, I would have died. I could have also ended up with a major scar from my ribs to the lady parts. So lucky but so shook. I dated a girl in high school who was super Christian and very much into purity culture. Every conversation we had somehow wound up back at how she wasn't going to have sex until marriage. I was extremely lonely and was just happy to have someone who said they cared about me, so I didn't mind. She dumped me our freshman year of college. We went to the same school since she didn't get into the prestigious Christian college she wanted. About a month later, one of her friends called me and wants to talk. I'm glad she did, because it gave me some closure. As it turned out, my now ex was getting spit roasted on the regular by most of the cooks at her job, plus her boss and many others. Turns out she was dating me to maintain her country Christian girl image. Everything that came out of her mouth was a lie, and everything that went into it was a peen. She ended up married to meth head ex-soldier who threatened to kill me if I ever contacted her again. I hadn't talked to her since we broke up. Now she's a single mom who works as a waitress and sells MLM crap while posting about how much she loves Jesus. Death. Twice. First time I was 21 and was having stomach pains. Like screaming and sheer agony type stomach pains. but I didn't think it was anything crazy. I've always had stomach issues. Finally, after a couple of days, I went to the ER and had to do emergency surgery. Found out I have diverticulitis, and one of the nodules had popped, spilling bile into the rest of the stomach, and had infected my appendix as well. Doctor said I had about 12 hours left to live. Second time was this past year. Around the scars from my diverticulitis surgery, I had developed 2 hernias. They weren't a bother for the longest time, but finally late last year they started hurting. Each time I went to the hospital, they were able to calm my body down and then pop a bigger hernia back in, and I was good to go. Until the last time, mid-May, surgeon came in and said we are doing surgery now to fix this. Good thing too, because he found some intestine had gotten stuck and was getting strangled and was dying. Said I was probably about a day or 2 away from having all sorts of problems, if not straight out death. I hate my stomach and it hates me. It's a tie between leaving Barcelona a few days before the van attack. Given the location of the attack, I most likely would have been there had I agreed to my parents' suggestion I stay a few more days in the city post summer school. Or the Tinder date I almost went on in Shanghai. Got to the metro station and was met by a guy who asked me if I was Hunter. Here to see the girl. If so, she's inside the bar. Follow me. I said something hurriedly to him in Russian, shrugged my shoulders, and walked away from him, as if I had somewhere to go. There was a bad windstorm in 2008 in Cincinnati, Ohio that came from a hurricane. Cincinnati is actually in the Ohio Valley, which means it doesn't typically get that windy. It was my future father-in-law's birthday and we were trying to make it over to their house for lunch. Only 5 minutes away. The main road is blocked by police cars as the trees and power lines had fallen. No worries, I'll take the back way. I go a little further and have to turn around because another tree had fallen and blocked both sides of the road. I turn around and go another direction. I get to the end of the street and can go either left or right. The left is blocked by a cop car and another car just turned around, so I'm going to go right. It's a 3-way stop, and I stopped first. I started to go, and the car on my left who just turned around wasn't stopping and ran the stop sign. I was frustrated, but heard a creaking sound. A 25+ tree fell with the trunk perpendicular to where me and my now wife were sitting, covering all windows with branches. We crawl out of the car and notice the tree itself is only being held up by stretched out power lines. If those power lines wouldn't have held the tree, we would have been crushed without a doubt. We just celebrated our 9th wedding anniversary and had 4 beautiful children, but it all could have ended that day. I was born addicted to crack, PCP and alcohol during the peak of the crack epidemic in Los Angeles. Hours later I went to a foster family who loved me unconditionally and provided me with a normal and stable home. Today I'm a successful educator, working on a doctorate and healthy as can be. Obviously, that could have gone very differently. I've built my career in creating programs for foster youth to successfully reach their educational goals, and I see firsthand every day what happens when you're not handed the golden ticket of a good foster family. I almost got into a relationship with a lady divorcing her husband that had 2 children. The kids were fine, but she never really wanted to leave him. Despite everything that she said, she just wanted to get from me what she wasn't getting from her marriage. And me, I was just being strung along. Thank God I got out of all of that. I got divorced after nearly 18 years of marriage. Under our state alimony laws, I would have needed to pay her 30% of my before tax income for nearly 15 years. There's an exception. However, if she remarries or lives with a partner, then she gets no alimony. While the divorce proceedings were going on, I learned that my ex-er was living with a partner, B, posting about it on Facebook, and C, had not made her Facebook private. Thank God. Because that enabled me to very quickly and easily prove that my divorce should involve no alimony. Years ago, I had an ex-GF that cheated on me constantly. Due to a lack of self-esteem/confidence, I would always take her back and forgive her. After what seemed to be a particularly final breakup, she asked to come over. I was reluctant, but said yes. When she arrived, she tried to seduce me, and I just wasn't having it, so I kicked her out. A week later I find out she was pregnant. This wasn't confirmed, but I firmly believe she was aware of the pregnancy and was trying to rope me into believing it was mine by having sex with me that night. Although I'm sure I would have found out it wasn't mine. The emotional turmoil from something like that would have been devastating. Moral of the story: think with the head on your shoulders, not the one in your pants. I had a job I hated. It paid alright. Commute was reasonable. I was good at it. The work itself was great. But management were complete assholes. With so many positive, I was scared of leaving. I did not know if what I found next would actually be better or just different problems. I realized that I was a miserable person at home too. That's when I realized that I had to leave. Luckily I took the leap. My current job certainly has problems and bad days, but nothing like that last one. Can we meet at Oxford Circus in the 7th of July at 10 AM? I can't do the 7th. How about the 5th instead? Okay. If I had gone on the 7th I would have been caught in the attacks. I don't think about it often, but sometimes it hits me. When I was really young, I was pressure washing my driveway with my dad. My dad was watching the whole time, but he had to go do something else. So he turned off the washer and said not to touch it. Stupid bastard me didn't listen to him and didn't appreciate the actual power of these things. So anyway, I turned it back on when he left and ignored his instructions. It suddenly cut out. I had no idea why, and I was freaking out as to why it was only pushing out a tiny trickle of water, and that my dad would be mad. I was trying to fix it, and I remember looking down at the nozzle. I remember this years later as how dangerous it was. I was essentially holding a misfired gun with the barrel right at my eye. I'm so damn lucky that thing didn't go off for whatever reason. So lucky. Broke up with this girl who had a history of very violent tendencies and a kid, both which never came up. Last I saw, her new boyfriend constantly posts about her spending money on MLMs. She wasn't even gay either, just using me for money. Big surprise. My first girlfriend. She had some pretty serious psychological problems, and looking back she was absolutely 100% trying to get knocked up to keep me around. At the time I was with her I was too naive to see it, but I lucked out and she never got pregnant anyway. Back in my heyday of being bullied, it all came to a climax, for 7th grade that is. Still got bullied pretty hard after all. I was walking home from school with some people that were in my grade. I approached the stop sign waiting to pass as there were cars still going, when my whole body was thrown into the street. A school bus was screeching to a halt, but not fast enough. I could see the distance closing in and all I had was pure instinct. I used that push that made me fall, and the momentum with it to force my body to move out of the way. As I rolled onto my feet, I could feel the burst of wind behind me and smell the burnt rubber. The kid got a 2-day detention and I, well, I'm here I guess. So I dodged a huge bullet in that sense. A girl liked me in 8th grade, but though she was just a friend. Plus my buddy liked her. We had a genealogy project in civics class and we learned that we were cousins. An actual bullet, wedged in a corner. I went right and not left. Well, my right. If I chose the other way, it would not have been good. Assuming bullet to my face/head would have been worse. Best 50/50 I'll ever make hopefully. Honestly just didn't like my head wedged straight in the corner. So I leaned one way. Sheetrock/drywall poofed out a bit. So still got me. Thought I was hit for a bit. No permanent issues though. If I kept my head straight or leaned the other way, well, not good. Not having kids with my ex-husband. Thank you world. Praise be. Instantly clicked with this girl on a dating app. We chat every day for almost 2 months. Finally met her in real life. Turns out she was a single mother of more than 6 kids and had the nastiest car I've had ever seen. I gave up on counting how many used cigarette but filled Starbucks cups were in the backseat. Sitting on a bench in the front of a store, my GF at the time had bought 3 things: hair dye, a bottle of liquor, and a pregnancy test. Depending on the results of the test, either she'd be dyeing her hair and I'd be getting wasted, or she'd be dyeing her hair and getting wasted. She got wasted that night. Bullet dodged. When I was in college, I wastedly hit a pint glass that was on my shelf. I sliced my finger pretty badly. but was too wasted and stubborn to really get help. Security followed the trail of blood from the bathroom to my dorm room and asked if I was okay. I showed him my finger and he told me he had to take me to the emergency room. I ended up getting a bunch of stitches and the doctor said that I was incredibly lucky because I was very close to slicing a tendon and causing permanent damage. I feel so lucky not only that security came and forced me to get medical help because I probably would have made that wound worse, but also that one wasted mistake didn't lead to something that would have an effect on me the rest of my life. Left a manipulative and abusive ex before having kids with him. I dodged an airstrike and artillery shelling and a couple actual bullets. IDK if that's count. Dating a guy r/him Veritas in real life who wanted to be with me forever. He wanted to get me pregnant and then marry me. Nope. Come to find out he lied about who he was dating other women at the same time, and got arrested for back child support. Glad I walked away when I did. I had put some of my dreams on hold for him. How could I have been so foolish? But sometimes some of life's best lessons are learned the hard way. I once went down into an underground mine while high on mushrooms. We walked and walked, with aid of lamps and flashlights. We stopped to rest in a large room of sorts. Then our lights burned out, and we had to slowly make our way back out a maze of tunnels. In pitch black. Even walking over 2x4s in places that bridged huge holes in the tunnel floors, where you would plummet hundreds of feet to your death should you misstep. Keep in mind that we were on mushrooms. It took half a day to find our way out, and I will never go exploring underground again. Signed up for a timeshare and financed $10,000 over the course of 10 years. Came to our senses later that evening and cancelled it the next day. Would have probably been shackled with that crap for the rest of our lives had we not. Walked over to a party. The house was packed and extremely loud. Got the uneasy feeling, as if something was wrong. I left. 10 minutes later, the house got busted by the police. Everyone there got an MIP or a contributing charge. My ex got really good at coming out ahead in relationships. She wouldn't move on until she knew about all the assets and had legal claim. We lived together while in college, and I was tapped out. Her other exes got child support. One of them should have gotten a genetics test, but the rest lost everything from the house and cars to investments and accounts put in their name from birth, as well as contents to safe deposit boxes or work bonuses. She got half of their retirement plans for the time they were together. She got divorced a lot and did it well. Every time she would go through a major divorce she'd get in touch again, and I'd get reminded all over again about how predatory she was. Was walking to the post office, and I saw a giant bad turd land about 2 steps in front of me. Glad I didn't leave a second sooner. Procrastination pays, apparently. I tried to commit suicide 2 years ago. Woke up to the horrible realization that it didn't work. Took me a move, a new job, and meeting my amazing partner to realize that I actually like living. To those struggling, it does get better, I promise. Dated a guy who was ridiculously homophobic and racist, would say black people were dirty, and being gay is okay, as long as they don't touch me. Ended fairly quickly, as you can imagine. He ended up getting his next GF pregnant, and became a teenage dad, so yep, dodged a bullet. The girl I dated before I met my wife became a heroin addict, among other things. I'm gonna call this more than a dodged bullet. She was a dodged missile. Fell madly in love with a guy who swept me off my feet. We made all kinds of commitments and plans. Then I found out he was a JW. I told him I wasn't going to convert, and he full stop ghosted. Completely vanished from my life. I was devastated, but once I got over the heartbreak, oh so very relieved. My relationship of 6 months ended with her ghosting me. Apparently my friend was then seeing her. She's a peen. He's a peen. And while I was heartbroken at the time, I realized eventually she'd always been a peen, and I was better off for not being with her. My school had a speaker for some university to talk about scholarship and their healthcare programs. I went with my parents to look at, and almost decides to go, until I looked online and basically it was a worthless school and no one really respected their degrees as it was a for-profit school. Was seeing a girl. Not serious. She didn't wanna fool around anymore. Next guy knocked her up and now she posts all sort of anti-vax stuff. Declining a job offer at a brand name management consulting firm in the US. They offered a huge salary and a nice bonus range. I declined and instead recommended another guy who they hired. He left after a year, saying it was a meat grinding hell with backstabbing as 10 people fought for the one promotion available in an up or out battle royale. He's not mad though, as he landed in a good spot afterwards. They also hid their corporate culture during the interview and put a fluffer in front of me. Sat. I bought a ring to propose to this girl I had been dating for 2 years. I hesitate asking her for a month and then find out that she has been sleeping with her ex-boss for almost a year. When I found out, I laughed so hard and walked right back to the jeweler and returned the ring and broke up with her. I fell off a 6 meters, 20 feet cliff, breaking my ankle. The bullet I dodged was the 50 meters, 165 feet cliff under that one, because I got snagged on a fallen log at the edge as I slid down the slope after the first impact. I was getting involved with this girl, who, unknown to me at the time, changed boyfriends a lot for mundane reasons. It was getting pretty serious, when suddenly, she says she was getting cold feet, and wanted to remain friends instead. That kind of hurt to hear, but I figured she had her reasons, so I accepted it and moved on. Later found out she was reconnecting with a guy she had been with but had broken up with because of exams in high school. She then dumped him when she met this football player a month or two later. She then dumped him because he couldn't give her all the attention she wanted. She then came running back to me after this relationship ended. I had met my soon-to-be wife about a year before she broke up with the last guy. The first girl made it pretty obvious she wanted attention, while casually mentioning she had broken up with her ex. I told her I wasn't interested, and she flipped out and tried to guilt me before blocking my number. Last I heard, she's married to some random Italian dude she met a year ago or something. Active duty army for most of the 90s, just missed the first Gulf War, and got out before the second one. It was about half my height, and had arms and eyes. Then I stepped on a turtle. Had a FWB that got serious. Every time she would bring up a relationship I'd just say I like the way things are, and she'd tell me I don't think I can do this anymore. If you don't want a relationship, she'd run off, go on a date with a guy, and then tell me how terrible it was and come back. Finally she went back to her ex after a year as FWB, got pregnant, tells me her ex flipped, and told her she and the baby were a mistake. He's actually been married and unemployed from the oil field. So he was telling his wife he was going to work, and then going to this chick's house, to stay for a week like he just got off the oil rig rotation, and that he doesn't want her or the baby. She asks me be with her, and we can raise the child together. I tell her I'm 23, have a Camaro which isn't kid friendly, and I told her to wait around, and be patient with me and she couldn't, and I'm not going to change my life, to make your situation better for you. She wasn't happy with that. But, why should I change my lifestyle because she left me and got pregnant? Anyway she moves to Alabama with her mom, has the child, and gets a BF and pregnant again. I haven't talked to her since she moved. Having a relationship with my abusive parents. If I hadn't left when I had the chance, they would lock me up, literally. Well, this just happened recently. I applied for a mortgage, got pre-approved, put an offer on a house, we accepted the counter offer, went to get the mortgage finalized on a Wednesday, was told I was going to get denied due to an issue on my Equifax credit report that wasn't mine. After paying for a home inspection, well test, down deposit and contacting a lawyer, financing had to be completed that Friday. I called Equifax that Wednesday, got an email Thursday saying it was removed. Got approved for the mortgage that Friday. Disputing something typically takes 10 to 15 business days to complete. Explained the situation to the Equifax customer care. They had it removed the next day. I also had valid proof. You wanna talk about stress? Totally dodged a bullet there. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can watch together.